Am I wrong for standing up for my mom against my dad and saying he has no right blaming her for making sure her kids are okay when my half-sibling could die and my step-siblings are suffering? 4 years ago my parents broke up because my dad cheated and got another woman pregnant. Dad moved in with his mistress and her kids and mom moved out of the family house and into something she could better afford to maintain with 3 kids. My dad and his mistress had some rough shit going on. My half-brother was born with multiple complications and he was in the NICU for months and he requires all this specialized care. My parents divorced during the NICU stuff and it was pretty tense. My dad hated that mom didn't pause the divorce so he could focus on bigger stuff. Because of the affair and everything I've, 16F, been pretty pissed at my dad and I feel let down by him and ashamed of him. I never cared much about bonding with the mistress, now his wife, or my step-siblings or my half-brother. I went to his house every other week while I was ordered to and then every other weekend when mom was able to get his time with me reduced. Dad's house struggles because of my half-brother's needs and my dad tried to get out of child support because of it but the courts made him still pay but he got it reduced by a little. Life at mom's is way better because of that stuff and it shows more for my siblings, 14 and 13, because they're in the same grade as 2 of our step-siblings and stuff gets compared. But that's been a bigger issue lately. My dad can't afford to pay for stuff like field trips or other activities but my mom can. So me and my siblings, we still get to do that stuff. And because we're at dad's house less he can't stop it. But 2 of his stepkids know when my siblings can do stuff that they can't and dad had asked mom to let him stop paying child support for a while because of a surgery my half-brother needed and he wanted my mom to gift the field trips to my step-siblings so they can go too and won't feel like shit when they know we get to do that stuff. He said if mom couldn't do that then he wanted her to not let us go. I think this talk happened in September and there were a few experiences my siblings got to do that my step-siblings didn't get to do since then and mom refused to stop providing for us but she also refused to gift to our step-siblings. Then in November my half-brother was brought to the hospital and he still hasn't come out. My step-siblings were worried and depressed about it and they were being teased in school for missing stuff with the rest of their classes. So my dad went to mom for help again and she said no again. My half-brother's grandparents were visiting and asked my dad and his wife to take the weekend off being in the hospital and they stayed. It was our weekend at dad's so we were there and my dad was complaining to his wife about my mom and how petty she is and selfish and evil because she's taking the affair out on my step-siblings and how my half-brother could die this time and she can't do a single thing to help with the steps suffering when it wouldn't be anything huge. His wife called my mom something nasty in response and was basically all like F my mom. My dad said he found it hard to remember what he saw in mom because she was so evil and cruel. I listened to them for like 10 minutes before confronting my dad and calling him out on what he said. I stood up for my mom and told him he has no right blaming mom for making sure her kids are okay and taken care of and have what they need and even want. I reminded him she only has 3 kids and that his stepkids and his son are nothing to her and it doesn't matter if the steps are suffering or my half-brother could die because they're not her responsibility and I said if he doesn't like that then he shouldn't have cheated. My dad got really angry and we argued for like an hour. His wife was trying to argue but she was ignored completely and then her youngest from before dad who's like 7 or 8 started crying so she went to check on her kids. But dad and we really got into it and said and he told me I picked a awful time to try and make him feel like and did I not see how serious this stuff is. He said my concern should be my half-brother and not my mom right now but he said my siblings and I don't seem to care if he lives or dies. That our step-siblings care but we don't. Then he said to defend my mom when he's in pain is wrong and to fight him on her behalf shows what a child I still am. My siblings and I went back to mom's early because of the fight. AITA?